Hello and welcome to CDRA Twitch Teach. It'd be good if I could get the name right of the show on the first episode of the show. Hi, welcome to Twitch Teach. I'm your host, David Amboys, and this week is the start of hopefully something that we will be doing for multiple events every week, depending on how it goes. This is kind of a review of what just happened on Monday with the CDRA Motorsports Drop Super Truck Series, the event that happened, and what drivers could do to improve, or what they can learn from what occurred over the event this past week. We were at Darlington this past week on Monday, and our first guest analyst, I guess is the best way to put it, is the defending back-to-back Court Trading Paints Cup Series and Court National Series champion. It's Jordan Erickson. Jordan, thank you for being a part of the show. Why don't you, you were actually kind of the spearhead for this idea. Why don't you tell the people what this is all about?
Yeah, so the last couple weeks, especially well, first of all, thanks for doing this. This is hopefully will be a good help to a good many people. But the kind of the idea would come from I'd been watching the CDRA races, helping some guys out with trying to get a little bit faster, trying to learn how to save tires a little bit. And I noticed a few things during the race where I'm like, man, like if I could talk to this guy and tell them, hey, maybe approach this situation a little bit differently. We could maybe cut down on cautions, or guys could have a little bit better run. So really, it just spawns from like just wanting to see CDRA and then in turn Court, become a better quality. Not that our racing quality is bad in Court or CDRA as a whole, but I mean, there's always room for improvement, right? And I think that everybody, if you can change one little thing and gain 3 finishing positions or 10 finishing positions, I think everybody would want to do that. So I think hopefully this is kind of a way to reach out to those guys who maybe somebody, maybe wouldn't reach out directly and ask for help from anybody. Maybe this is a way that we can bridge that gap a little bit. So hopefully that this is a idea that a lot of people like. Hopefully it sticks. Hopefully people get some, even if somebody doesn't watch it live. Hopefully that the VOD is helpful for somebody to, whether it's me this week or Mitchell or Steven Taylor or John Long or Brandon Ward or whoever in the following weeks, hopefully, use CDRA for what it's supposed to be as a development and learning league. We can kind of prove everybody.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, this is a minor league at the end of the day. This is not trying to be any sort of replacement for the championship online racing teams. It's meant to help it. It is developmental. It is right there in the title. It's the D in CDRA. But yeah, and you mentioned helping out. You've helped out with Jeff Gross over the beginning of this 2020B campaign, and the gains that he's had through these CDRA races, he can point directly to week 1 at Homestead with getting the extra laps at Homestead for the truck event there. And then it went on and helped him in the Court National Cup Series opener at Homestead.
Yeah, big shout out to Jeff. He's been improving really well. Me and Brandon specifically have been, trying to help him with get a little bit faster and little tricks and tips. Not really tricks and tips, but like, hey, this is what I would look for and how the car feels at this specific moment. And if you back off here and let off here, you're gonna save tires and you'll be able to catch these guys, and all that kind of thing. Just like general racecraft things that not necessarily even technique, but like racecraft, especially in iRacing, is so big. Figuring out like how to actually run your race, right? And I think that that's another thing that can be improved upon, not necessarily just the incidents that happen inside the race. Because I mean, I definitely don't want this to turn into a version of a incident review where blame is placed, because that's definitely not a very constructive way to go about it.
No.
It's just try to use it as a situation where we can teach, and that's definitely what the approach that we took, that I've been helping Jeff with. And he's obviously, like you said, he's run with it and he's done a lot with it.
Yeah, and he's running really well, not just on Mondays, but on Wednesdays as well. And also to add to that point, the nice thing about being the host of this show and also being the series director of this division is that if there's any controversial why'd you throw a caution, why didn't you throw a caution situations, I can actually help you with that too. I can actually tell you guys why I threw a caution, why I did not throw a caution, why I cleared a black flag, why I did not clear a black flag. We can kind of, pull the curtain back a little bit and actually explain some of those things. But these people have stared at this logo enough. We've plugged it a lot. So why don't we go ahead and get started with our show here tonight? And we will start off with an incident that happened on the lap 18 mark of tonight, or of Monday's event, involving Phil Clark and Mike Oppenheimer. And I'm going to roll the tape here, and we'll actually follow this one on the 00 of Oppenheimer. And you give us your thoughts on this. This is going to be where Phil Clark goes into turn number 1, and he's going to hit the wall here and then come down. And unfortunately, it opens the door for Robert Hill to just get walloped there in that incident. We'll watch it one more time from Robert's point of view from the cockpit so that we can actually see it from there. And you see there's Charlie Brown in front of him, who just won the paint contest for Retro Week. And there's the hit. Can't really see what happens. And then before you know it, bam. So Jordan, run us through that right there.
I mean, this is going to be a class. This is a lot of the wrecks that we see, or a lot of the incidents from this past week, are going to be very specific to Darlington, right? Because Darlington is so line sensitive. You miss your entry by a half a car width, low or high, and it's going to completely ruin how you exit the corner. You apex too early, and you end up hitting the wall on exit. You carry too much entry speed. The entire corner affects all the way through, obviously, but I think what happened here is maybe Phil was going to try and let Mike go. I feel like that's what's going to happen. On corner entry is just not the spot to be able to do that, right? You're setting yourself up here to not be able to make the corner at the speed that you entered in, especially into 1. The high line is never going to work like that, especially in this instance, when you have a car that's going to come up beside you. In that sense, if Phil was trying to let Mike go, which, like I said, I feel like that might have been what his goal there was, you're better off waiting to the backstretch, waiting off the corner. Passing somebody, especially at Darlington, is a two-way street, right? You need to it's a dance, if you will. Both people need to. The guy who's getting past needs to have as much respect for the guy getting past, that's doing the passing. And if you don't let off, you can make somebody's life very difficult to pass if you want to, but in this case, we're lap 18 in the race. I like I said, I feel like Phil is trying to let him go, but a little patience on Mike's part, a little better opportunity to let Mike go, or a better choice of where he does that at, might have just saved that. But again, I don't think there's anything necessarily
egregious
wrong with what happened. You know what I mean? Like, Robert asked for it to be reviewed, I guess, and Robert, it just got collected in it because
wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's Darlington's a single groove racetrack. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and going back to Robert's cockpit view, if we can, just a moment ago, we had it up for the actual accident, but if you look, he's completely obscured by the 46 of
Charlie
I'm
sure
Brown.
He doesn't even see him until he makes contact.
To be fair, you look at this and it's like, there's no car here. It may as well just be the 46 and the 00, and then before you know it, there's a car there, and it's around, and it's blocking the track, especially at, I can freeze it right. Oh, wow, we have lost our spot. Yep, opening night. Man. Opening night. We're learning this as we go. Robert, the track was blocked at that point, and he didn't really have much more to work with at that point. So tough break for Robert. He had some pretty good runs later on in the week, but not exactly a great night for Hillsy.
So I think too here, like I just saw here, the 47 did that kind of exact same thing. And if you probably look at what the 47's entry speed is right here, and like what he slows down to, So his entry speed was like what 160 something.
Yeah, and he gets down to about 143 here at this point.
Right. So I think if you even look there and like compare that back to back with like Phil's next lap, when he, like I said, I feel like he was trying to do the same thing that Overshot just did.
So
I feel like he might have carried a little too much entry speed with it, just not even knowing what exactly happened.
that's exactly it. Take a look at that. By the
So
time you start slowing down, it's further into the corner because he's not even slowing down by this red billboard here on the right.
yeah, and I mean, and there too, like this is a prime example of just how, like this is an exaggerated example of how missing your entry at Darlington would just completely ruin your entire lap.
Yeah.
Obviously, he hit the wall, but even if he didn't hit the wall, your exit speed from here on out is just going to be way lower, and momentum is everything.
Yep. So we'll watch it again. Overshot. Demonte Dotson slows it up, keeps it up top, and he will hit the wall, I believe, out of 2 here. He does actually make contact with the wall here.
So again, like that's another thing is like he's completely offline from where you need to be on exit here. Like if you go back on his exit, you obviously he couldn't because there's trucks underneath there. But really, you want to slow down there and start turning down, and you want to be way down where Phil's at. His middle, the middle of DeMonte's corner was good. It's just the exit where he tried to stay up, and you just can't do that here.
Yeah, at that point, it would have been probably better off to just let off the throttle and live to fight another day and keep it off.
Which I mean, I mean, in hindsight, it's always 2020, and that's what is going to be a common theme with a lot of these things. Is hindsight's always 2020. I mean, I've been in plenty of situations where I sit down and like think about what exactly just happened, and I'm like, well, I could have handled that a little better.
Yeah,
but.
So just unfortunate, wrong place, wrong time in that situation. But that seems to be such a problem here with Darlington is that the groove here is so narrow and it's very difficult. And in fact, this actually, I thought that would, but it does not. We had another talking point here tonight about how to handle entering the corner too low here at Darlington, which. I don't know if we have an exact example of it queued up here, so it might be a little bit tougher to find an example of that. So we'll see if we can just kind of mess around and see if we can see one kicking around here on a restart or anything. But yeah, it is very difficult here at Darlington to stay. Like the groove is maybe 2 truck widths wide on a.
I mean, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even say, especially. I would say it's 1 truck. Like you legitimately can't race side by side. You just lose all speed. Like, if it's towards the end of the race and you're got 20 laps left and you're fighting for track position and trying to maintain your track position, then that's a situation where you maybe want to consider racing somebody a little bit harder. I mean, this is probably not a great example because it ends up being a wreck, but
this is Jeff Gross, Kevin Bingle, and Johnny Parham down the backstretch, lap 36.
Yeah, so I mean, here I think that was just another thing, right? It's just Darlington. Johnny got a run on Kevin and was going to take it. I think Kevin got a run on Jeff but didn't take it. So there was just a little bit of a miscommunication across the board on what exactly was going to happen. So Johnny is obviously going to enter the corner low here. Bingle could have given him more room, but I mean, obviously hindsight's always 2020. But entering the corner low at Darlington, you're just going to want to scrub off more speed. It just means that if you enter the corner, especially into 3 and 4, because 3 and 4 you want to enter, there's like a seam. If you look at a car that's going through the corner, look at an actual, like go to Jeff's car here.
Yeah, if we go to the 97 at Gross here.
So you can see there's seams in the track, right? And in 3 and 4, you want to be like in the upper sections of those seams on entry, and then that'll set you up for success on exit. If you have to enter low, you just need to scrub off more speed.
Yeah, if you're past this seam, you're having a really tough time to kind of make that move there to get back up onto the racing groove. And the main, at the end of the day, what you're going to want to do there is just hang on for dear life onto that left brake pedal and just hope that you can actually woe it up. But the best solution would probably be not to even be in that situation in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking, the only reason you'd really be down underneath that low in the first place if you're passing somebody, right?
Yeah.
And if you're passing somebody, you're hopefully, especially early in the race, lap 30, lap 20, you're hoping that you get a run on that guy and he lets you go, is
Yeah.
essentially what happens. Because, I mean, you need to take care of your stuff the same as you need to take care of somebody else's, especially that early in the race.
Absolutely. And would you argue that like Darlington is probably the biggest example of give and take and how important
Yeah,
it is?
absolutely. I mean, give and take at Darlington is pretty much the track that requires that the most. I'd say this track, Bristol to a certain extent with how you have to run high. Because obviously here it's such a racetrack where you can run that high side and you can pinch somebody down, but the ideal line is diamonding the racetrack all the time. So you're transitioning from the low line to the top, back to the low in 1 and 2, and then you're running the top all the way through, really top to middle. You start high, come low, then come, it's high, low, or middle, high in 3 and 4. Bristol obviously is high all the time, so you're really needing give and take there too. So Bristol and I'd say Darlington are the two biggest for like, I'm going to take care of you as much as you take care of me type situation. And if you don't want to let somebody pass for 20th place and you're running for 20th place and the 21st place guy is trying to pass you and you don't want to let them pass, it's very easy to not let them pass. But at the same time, you need to kind of be like, hey, it's lap 40 of the race. Maybe I just give this spot up and get this guy later on. Exactly. Give this spot up and come back and save my tires better than him and then come back and get him.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a pair of CDRA rookies, court rookies, however you want to put it. Everyone's a rookie technically in this league because it is a new league, but you know what I'm getting at. Matt Eberhardt and the number 37 of Elliott Henderson had to go in turn 3 and 4 on lap 56. And it looks like it might have been a little bit of netcode, and then a shot from James Gutta from the back kind of got back into the 43, kind of got the momentum going again, and then just kind of finished him off there.
Yeah, I mean, and here you're talking like as making a pass, right? In this instance, I would not consider Matt as having position on Elliott to try to execute a pass right here. Darlington is obviously the racetrack we just talked about it, the give and take, but you have to set your pass up pretty much 2 corners before you even attempt the pass. If he was to his inside quarter panel into 3, I feel like Elliott probably would have gave the spot up. But really, if you look, he was not. Elliott had the position. And then this is probably a pretty good example of, entering the corner low because Matt had to, because he had a car on his outside and he just didn't slow up enough.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those situations where Elliott had a decent run down and really, if you even back it up from here, back into, play through from turn 1 all the way through, Matt really didn't have that big of a run on Elliott to be able to execute that move properly, right? Waiting another lap, and maybe he was faster than Elliott at this point. And look, I mean, and he obviously there was circumstance too here where Jim in the 86 here had a little bit of a run, but didn't take it on Matt, and maybe Matt felt that pressure a little bit that, hey, I need to try to execute a move here on Elliott so I don't get passed by the 86. But again, it's just one of those things where set your corner, set yourself up for success by taking the corner before this, using your corner exit as getting a good run down the straightaway here, which Jim does a good job, but he also backs out of it here. As soon as he sees that, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm going to back out of this and let it go. And then I think that's what kind of spooked Matt into making a move like that a little bit prematurely.
And also what adds to that is kind of the chain reaction that you see at Darlington with everybody running so close to one another in the corners. You get spread out pretty good on the straightaways, but by the time you have to woe it up for the corner, you're right on top of the driver in front, which is the case with Ricky Butler, and the 10 right behind these 3 is that
there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, you'll see here, if you watch again, you'll see that the initial contact will happen, and then you'll see Jim back up, and then Butler makes contact there, and then they end up turning around, and that seems to also kind of add to the situation. It's just an unfortunate chain reaction there.
I mean, there too is like if you notice how many cars are stacked up behind Elliott here, that tells me that at this point of the race, Elliott might have burned his tires off a little bit more than he should. Because really, you know, how iRacing and how the Aero is, everybody should be pretty spread out. You know, you have your comers and goers, but everybody, like, you should be able to get yourself spread out. It's not pack racing. You know, you shouldn't have a situation like this unless you're backing up, right? Unless your pace is slowed down to an extent where everybody else behind you is catching you. And because Darlington is so hard to pass, obviously you have this log jam of sorts. And it happened all over the place in the race the other night. And in one of those situations is that pressure from behind that Jim was putting on Matt forced that move to happen. So, I mean, it's just a whole thing. Whereas in Elliott's case, maybe he should have realized that, okay, my pace is not what it should be on lap 60. Let me back off a little bit and start letting these guys go and like shuffle it through.
All right, this might be a prime example of give and take from the way that it looks like. This is lap 65. I believe this one will involve the 70 of Davis Warren and the 43 of Matt Everhart again.
So, I mean, I think that was a little bit of netcode, a little bit of, I think Davis did a good job to get back down single file right here. Like he let off, I would assume, let off a little bit to get behind. I think that's Jeff Miller, I think.
Yeah, that's Jeff.
Yeah, and then, but as he was slowing down that, obviously, Matt did a good job through the corner there, running the top and still maintaining his exit speed. Like that was a pretty good job by him. I think that was honestly netcode, to be honest.
Yeah, that looks like it was. Not the best netcode throughout the night. Had that a couple. Yeah, that's absolutely netcode. Yep, that is a netcode incident. Unfortunately, that happens. But
you always say that like netcode stuff. I hate the netcode excuse, right? It's not an excuse, but like I hate that because there's obviously a reason why the game thinks that contact is going to be made there is because of the steering angle and the speed that he's moving up and down and all that kind of stuff. Like the game, the game is smart enough. It has a reason why it thinks that contact's going to happen. I would equate this to, I think it was at Kansas or something like that, where Kevin Harvick turned Kyle Busch, but he never touched him. But I mean, just because he didn't touch the guy and just because it was netcode doesn't mean that it wasn't a situation that you shouldn't have put yourself in.
Yeah.
I think in Matt's case, though, I don't know. I think this was just a racing deal. That's really what it boils down to. And how exactly to avoid that? Maybe as Matt, knowing that it's lap 65 of a 140 lap race or whatever it was, 113. You know, you're just at halfway. Maybe that wasn't the best move to make, but I do know too. You know, knowing that he was running up front at the start of the race, I know that plays a factor in like where your mindset is, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm 11th. I was running 3rd and 5th for the majority of the night. I shouldn't be back here. I'm going to try to push, and that's how you get yourself into trouble.
Speaking of trouble, it happened again on lap 86. Kyten Bumbersbach and Kevin Bingle here in 1-2.
So, yeah, I mean that's a good example of just where you don't want to have to try to execute your pass, right? You want to execute your pass off the corner, not into the corner, and especially here. And I think Kevin was maybe trying to let him go, or he just got a bad entry into the corner. But then again, like you just got to have a little bit of patience and just kind of let it go. You know, I know that this guy is slow in the middle of the corner here.
He gets a heck of a run going.
Yeah, I think maybe Bengals slowed down a little bit too much. I don't know where at in the tire run that is, you know, to know that, you know, exactly how hard Bengal ran and, you know, where his tires at were compared to Kyten's.
Fairly substantial. It was about a 17 lap run at that point.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the first handful of laps on your tires in this game are the most. So tires are the big thing now, especially with tire limits. The big thing is saving tires, and if you can save tires, and you can save your tires and still maintain some resemblance of a pace, even though if you give up track position, you will eventually get that back based on your speed being able to overcome the lap time difference. Your first handful of laps will ultimately dictate how your entire run goes. This is like more like not specifically with this incident, but like how I always approached saving my tires in any race. I take it super easy the first 10 laps, and then I just maintain whatever pace I'm at lap 10. I just try to maintain that pace, and that always, I always felt like I had very good success saving tires like that.
Yeah.
If I burn my tires off in the first 5 laps, heated them up, and then I'm chasing that tire wear throughout the entire run, my tire wear would be 20% lower than what it would be ideally, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, back to what happened on this. Like I said too, I think patience. It's Darlington again. This is a specific incident to Darlington. Because normally you'd be able to pass a guy on the low side here because the exit of your corner isn't essentially a funnel.
Yeah, it's such a difficult racetrack because it really does narrow up off of turn number 2. And going back to your point about tires there, the situation, I found personally when we did this is a court example, but when we had the National Cup Series opener at Homestead, I was terrible. I was just terrible. I was having a rough time with the tires, and I made it. And the following week at Atlanta, I made a legitimate point to be like, I am not going 10 tenths at the beginning of a run. I am not even attempting it. And then I ended up with the top 10. So
yeah, and I always say what I've told a few folks in like how to save tires is, when you think you've backed off to the point you're saving tires, back off your entry another 2 car lengths, and that's where you need to actually be.
Yeah,
like it's a mental block for some people that they think they're going slow, but the name of the game is to go slow to go fast at the end of it. I mean, there is a little bit of a trick to the feel and like how you exit the corner and how you apply the gas. That's all finesse stuff, but at the end of the day, you're looking to not burn your tires off. And another thing too is, in your sound options, I don't know if a lot of people do it, but I turn down all of my sounds except for the tires. So if you go to that, and I turn down everything, and then tires I turn all the way up, because you can then hear your tires essentially screaming the entire time. So if my tires are screaming, I know that, hey, I'm probably pushing it a little bit too hard right here. That's just another like little thing that you can change that might help you make the connection between, am I pushing too hard, and what are my tires actually doing?
Well, there you go. That's a nice little tip there for everybody. So again, tires all the way, everything else down. I guess
to a certain extent. I think there's some of that stuff I have a little bit higher up, like the spotter and stuff, obviously.
Yeah, obvious
but,
stuff.
Yeah, the most important thing you can listen to is because I mean, the engine is the engine, right? Like if you're down on horsepower, you can look at your RPMs. Only thing that you have other than feel of your wheel, what your tires are doing, is the sound.
Yeah.
So use that to your advantage.
Don't make it sound like a Tesla, though. I mean, don't have it.
The funny thing is like iRacing doesn't let you do that. Like even if you turn all those all the way down, like the car noise is still there and everything. It's just the tires are much more pronounced.
Yep. Let's move on to lap 94. Looks like there was a accident here, and nope, it's probably behind this. Let's see if we can find it real quick here. It's way behind it, apparently.
Matt in the chat says both of his incidents were a result of pushing too hard and not enough experience at Darlington. I think that's huge too. Is like Darlington is one of those tracks. Like I haven't had a lot of super good success at Darlington. I won going back to when I was competing in 2010 and 2011 in like the Pro Series, which is the ring under the Coke Series essentially. When I was in that, I think I won a Darlington race in what was the B car at the time, the national car. It's the K&N car now, but that used to be the Xfinity car or whatever, the nationwide car at the time.
Yeah.
It's one of those tracks where like you just need laps. That's really it.
And a long time ago, yes, you were in what is now the iRacing Coca-Cola iRacing series.
I think there's a bit of a... I'm not as good as all those guys.
Those guys.
I'll say that. I think my average finish was like 30th, and I think I might have finished in the top 10 once. And I was in there for like just 2.5 years, I think, or 1.5 years or something like that. So back then, it was much easier to make.
Yeah, there wasn't as many people, and there wasn't as much money, and there wasn't enough. There weren't teams, and
The cars were all
everything.
messed up. Like,
Yeah.
it was a whole big thing.
Do you
Anyway,
remember who was it who had that win? Sorry, we're getting off topic here, but who had it? Who
I
had
know what
that
you're
win
talking
at
about
like?
without even say it.
Well,
Texas, it was Sandy Banerjee.
yeah,
That's what you're talking
Sandy
about. Yeah.
Banerjee. Yes, he. So some context. Back in the day, like 2010, Sandy Banerjee, who raced out of India, I think, right? Like
Yep.
he was
Yep.
from
Mumbai.
India, yeah, Mumbai, India, and he wrecked his car at Texas, and he
Las Vegas. It was Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, and he smashed up the rear end, but for some reason it made the car handle better, and he went on the win. So, iRacing, it's come a long way.
In the aside about that one too is that was the start of, I think that was the second or third race in the first
Coke
race of that
Series.
year. Yeah, of period 2010. Dale Jr. won the first one. And that might have been the second or third one. Anyway, the articles and the posts of the races were on the front page of NASCAR.com. And at that time, you didn't have to get, for whatever reason, they weren't making us get sponsor approval to run logos.
Okay.
Sandeep won in a skull car that got put on the front page of NASCAR.com. So that one didn't go over too well. So at that point, from that point forward, we had to get actual sponsorship approval from companies, and it was a whole thing.
Don't worry, that's not coming to court or CDRA anytime soon.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a bigger deal than what we got here.
Yeah, we're kind of the bootleg operation. Anyways, moving on. Lap 93 going into 94. This one had a little bit of a conversation on it afterwards. Jeff Gross and Jory Fleischauer will come off of turn number 4, and Fleischauer and Gross have a meeting of the minds, and that happens.
I think I know what happened here. So Jory, I think on Facebook, he was running with a really backed off field of view, which I think is a common thing that folks do if they have a single monitor. Like you back your field of view off so you can see to the sides, and that makes it very hard to figure out like closing speeds, and like that messes with your depth perception. I'm thinking that that's what happened here is, Jory might have been looking and having one of those situations where I'm looking to the left and I'm steering to the left. You know what I mean? Like one of those, like not target fixation, but it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those deals where, and I know too, Jory had old tires and had stayed out, and then he was backing up. Maybe could have done a better job of lifting, like knowing, okay, I have 20 lap older tires. I don't know what exactly it was, but it was something like that where he had stayed out for a run and was backing up through the field essentially and trying to level out somewhere above where he was running at before, which is a strategy play and great, but maybe knowing that, okay, these guys behind me have newer tires, they're going to be faster than me. Instead of racing off into the corner and backing off here, I'll back off and let Jeff go early. And maybe that's what he was trying to do, and we just didn't get to that point. But again, like I said, I think that's what I saw is Jory was running with a little bit of a weird field of view, and that might have done it.
Yeah, so unfortunately that led to him getting turned late in the event, and he did stay out there for a little bit, but I think eventually he did have some issues on, I believe, what's going to be considered our next caution, which I believe occurred on lap 106, and I think this one will involve the 09 of Mitchell Riggs. I believe this is the one that we wanted some reviews done on it, and yeah, this will be that. Let's get a better camera shot so that we can actually see what the heck happened here between the 09 and the 30.
Yeah, so you saw it right there. Like in playing that through, Mitch did a good job of giving Kyten enough room and everything, and Kyten did a good job of like, okay, I'm not going to be able to make this exit if I stay on Mitchell's outside. I'm going to back off and get behind him. But right there you saw the 69 checked up a little bit, which made Mitch check up a little bit, which just didn't. It was just an accordion effect thing. I mean, it's just a racing deal, right? And it's unfortunate that it happened, but that's kind of what happens at Darlington, right? Everything kind of funnels to a certain extent, gets bound up real good, and eventually something is gonna
and it
end up happening.
A pretty big accident.
It's unfortunate that it happened because I know Mitch was having a good run, Kyten was having a good run, and it messed that up for them. But at the same time, Oh no.
I need to point this one out because we did have to look at this after the race.
Was that caution out type situation? Is that what happened
and
here?
and this is kind of an admin thing. When you see this is Curran Beckler, and you'll see here there is smoke, and the whole pack is all the way over here, folks. This is not the racing groove. This is very not the racing groove. And unfortunately, it's a case of Jory comes down, Curran tries to come down, and they meet, and that happens. So when you see that, both guys tried to do the right thing. It appears as if both guys tried to slow up, but yeah, just unfortunate there. Situation.
And that's a like a little bit of a wreck avoidance thing, kind of, exaggerated to a certain extent. Jory's far enough away from that wreck where he could have stayed at the wall and slowed down in enough time to not have to change lanes, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Jory slowed down 50% and Curran slowed down 75%, and they just came together. But that's one of those things too, where see smoke, slow down, keep your line, and especially if somebody's packed up behind you, don't make abrupt lane changes. You're just asking to get, I would say too is like, whether it's slowing down for a wreck or you're getting lapped, you're getting passed, just be predictable, right? If you're predictable, the chances of you getting involved in something are going to be a whole lot less because somebody passing you or the guy in front of you or behind you. It's the same thing like entering pit road in at Talladega and Daytona. If you're predictable and hold your line, the odds of you getting ran over and getting wrecked are going to be a whole lot less because at least somebody knows, like, okay, this is where he's going to be. I can avoid him and figure out what's going on in front of me.
Yeah, and, judging by the fact that behind these guys was Chad Holmes, and you'll actually see kind of a tale of two cities when it comes to this, is you'll see Chad see the accident, and he slows up, and he's able to avoid the accident completely with plenty of space. So you watch that mile per hour here, he's on the brakes here.
And he's on the track still, right? Like he's technically on the racing groove.
But,
oh no.
Yeah. Need to also point this one out is sorry Robert, but
I think there too is like he might have been far enough back from the wreck too where he didn't necessarily maybe see it, right away.
Yeah.
And then the 76 looks like he might have the 11 backed off a little bit. He's like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna get a run here.
Yeah, this actually makes sense because he probably doesn't see the original contact because the 11's in the way of the height of Eric Height, and then oh crap, they're wrecking. I better move it up, and he somehow survives.
I mean, like we said in the beginning, hindsight's always going to be 20/20. Like you play that slow and you're like, oh, you can see that wreck in front of you. Like, what are you doing? But most of the time, like if I'm Robert here, I'm not looking. I'm focusing on two cars in front of me to make sure I'm not going to have to check up. You know what I mean? To make sure he's not going to hit the wall. I'm not necessarily looking halfway down the next corner, especially when there's three cars in front of me.
Yeah, it's that's the big thing is just pointing out, that a lot of these situations can be avoidable, but just a really sketchy situation there at the back half of the field for that one. But that's pretty much it. We did have a final restart that I do want to cover real quick, and it involves the number 48 of Nate White and the 42 of Steven Taylor. This final lap, need to stress this is the final lap, so take it for what it's worth. We're not saying you can't race, but on the final lap, 48 comes up and just kind of door checks him, and then that led to a little bit of a big situation coming down here where all of that kind of happens. And that's kind of
in iRacing especially, the 95's case or Davis's the 70's case here, that there's not going to be a caution, so you're literally going to go full out through that and try to, like, if I can gain 2 spots, I'm going to go full throttle through this wreck.
Mm-hmm.
That there's I don't have to worry about fixing my car, I don't got to worry about all that stuff. I'm just going to drive full throttle through this, and if I gain 2 spots, that's great. If I don't, I'm finished where I finished. The move in the first place, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of, because you didn't have a run. It was a desperation move to try to get past somebody who you didn't have position on. You didn't set your corner up beforehand. It wasn't a great move to begin with that started all of that caused, this whole mess. timing your run off of 2 into 4 probably would have set yourself up for a little bit better success. If I'm Steven Taylor, I'm not going to give you that spot either.
Yeah.
We're coming. It's the white flag. We're going to race this out.
Yeah.
And that's one of those situations too, where if you're at any other track other than Darlington, that doesn't happen. That's another specific thing to Darlington that, you're not going to see anywhere else. Maybe, like I said, at a Bristol or maybe a Dover.
Yeah.
You might see something like that, but not at an Atlanta or a Charlotte.
No, not a typical mile and a half. One last thing, and this is something that I hate to bring up, but I have to because it's going to be part of our penalty announcements this week. This is not actually a penalty, but it's something that we're going to have to stress. We have an incident cap in this series, which you saw was 20 incidents and then 25 incidents, the disqualification. Well, that actually came into play here with the 68 of Schriebler. The race is technically over, but it is not over when it comes to incident cap or incident points. And the 68 did this.
Oh, that's you too. Oh no. Well, I mean, he got stuck in the fence, like style points, right?
I mean, yeah, style points for getting stuck in the fence. I got to give him credit where credit's due. I mean, that's nice, but it did add incident points to the race. Yeah, to a lot of people. And I know for a fact that if you get an incident point, which will happen to the 86 of James Gutta here, instead of getting the incident point, he got the incident point here in this whole kerfuffle, but he was originally ninth.
Too,
yeah, he was originally ninth, but because of the incident point, it moved him to. He ended up hitting 20 incidents, which moved him to the tail end of the lead lap, moved him to 20th. So what we did is we did the scoring manually. We moved. Well, Jim wasn't running for points anyway, so Jim didn't need his points added back. But what we did in the scoring is we took everybody who finished ninth up on the lead lap and we deducted 1 point. So Butler lost a point, Dotson lost a point, Glover, Gross, Riggs, Boylan, me, Granger, Black, Hansen, Henderson all lost 1 point to make up for the difference there. But we're going to talk about it at Iowa in 2 weeks. When the race is over, do not run into one another. Do not do it. I know it's difficult because you want to go beat on your buddy when the race is over, but wait till that clock. There's going to be a clock on your F1, which I don't think will actually show up because it's a replay. But there's a clock, and when it flips over to the session time remaining and not the waiting for finish or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? If it's still within like a minute 45 seconds, do not run into one another. If it is then displaying like an hour plus, go ahead and knock each other out. I don't care, but don't run into one another when the clock is within a minute. I know it's
we don't have that incident thing in court, right?
No, it is not in the Court National Cup Series yet. I don't think it's coming anytime soon, but it's something that in CDRA we want to be we want to try out new rules. I mean, that's the whole point of a minor league and a developmental series is not just for driver development, but it's also rule development or, things that we could try and be better with and see what we could do about, modifying the way that we do things. So that's what that's for. We wanted to see it. And it seems like it's received pretty well. I mean, there's a lot of newcomers, a lot of guys who haven't run with one another. And we've had 4 relatively good races in my opinion, so I'm pretty happy with the way that it's going with the incident cap. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, for this group, you had 9 cautions. 9 cautions seems like a lot, but at Darlington, I mean, that's pretty average. I think we ended up with 6 in the Wednesday night race, and I don't know what I think the average at Darlington across like all of the races that courts run there is like 9. So I mean, it's very like 9 is a very average for cautions at Darlington. And I mean, even if you take that and extrapolate that even further, like up the food chain, if you will, to like the Coke series, like those guys, when they've run Darlington in the past, like it's been notoriously a very yellow-filled race just because of how difficult the racetrack is.
Yeah.
The the fact that, like I said, Matt earlier in the chat said that it was just a deal with needing experience at Darlington, and that's really what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is mainly just, I thought the two races that we had at Darlington between the CDRA Motorsports Drop Super Truck Series and the Court National Cup Series were pretty good. Like you said, considering last season, I think both races had cautions well up there. I think we had both races with cautions in the teens or pretty darn close, and they were both 147 laps, like last night's Cup race. So, really, really exciting and good stuff. This was the one track in the first half of the season where I was like, oh, that might be a problem. But it ended up going pretty well, and I feel confident in putting this back on the schedule in future seasons. So
Yeah, I mean, 15 plus lap runs. I mean, that's excellent for here. I mean, it was just long enough that you started seeing guys fall off with tire wear, which is what you want. I mean, especially now where iRacing is so tire wear focused, and like and that's not going away, right? Like that is here to stay. And then it'll get better. Hopefully, with when the dynamic track is put back in, you can actually move around a little bit, and they fix all that. But that tire wear deal isn't going anywhere.
Yep, it's not going anywhere. And of course, by the time the next CDRA Motorsports Drop Super Truck Series event takes place, it will be at Iowa Speedway in 2 weeks' time, which is going to be on September 14th. And that will be noteworthy because we have a new build next Wednesday night. So, new build, a lot of things expected. Not a lot known about what they're going to do with the oval cars yet.
I haven't seen patch notes yet to even talk about that intelligently quite yet.
Yeah, we know that we will be getting Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which will be on the CDRA schedule later on in the season. That will be part of CDRA Country Night, and that will be sometime in October, and we're looking forward to that. Hopefully, y'all can come on out for that. And,
oh, geez.
And we're getting a couple new road cars on that side of things, so pretty exciting build. A lot of exciting stuff. New dirt track coming in Weed Sports. So we are off next Monday night because next Monday night is Labor Day. Yeah, it's September. It's Labor Day. Can you believe it? No one knows when we are in the calendar anymore. It's Labor Day.
Legitimately, I was sitting at work yesterday leaving, and I said to one of my coworkers, I'm like, because we're on this weird schedule of working Tuesday, Thursday, or Tuesday. I'm working Monday, Wednesday in the office and home the rest of the time. I'm like, all right, man, I'll see you on Monday. He's like, no, you won't. It's Labor Day, and I'm like, what in the world? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a crazy time right now. It's a crazy time. So we are off next week, but in 2 weeks' time, we'll be at the Iowa Speedway. Jordan, you were the last winner at Iowa Speedway in the Court National Cup Series. Why don't you talk a little bit about Iowa Speedway, some of the characteristics about that 7/8 mile racetrack out there in Iowa?
Yeah, Iowa was really fun. I was one of my favorite Iowa and Martinsville are probably my two favorite racetracks. Super wide, a lot of room to pass and race, but the fast lane is going to 9 times out of 10 be on the bottom. There's, if I just pull you through a lap in my mind, I wish I would have been a little prepared and sent you a replay that we can talk about a little bit more. But into one, you're going to be up by the wall. Through the front stretch, be up by the wall, and then take a pretty big arc at it. But there's a very specific spot when I like to get to the bottom, and it's after a bump. There's a bump into one, and I want to be above that bump, and then I want to be right after that bump. I want to be hitting the white line or yellow line or whatever it is at Iowa. I want to be hitting that and then carrying as low as I can get all the way through the rest of the corner. And then into 3, again, backstretch back up to the wall. But into 3, I take a very shallow and very straight and deliberate entry into 3. And there's a reason for that, is because the less of an arc you take to the corner and the less wheel input that you put into it and the less turning you do on exit, the smoother you are with everything, the less your tires are going to wear. That's one thing that even at 1.5 miles, like if you can take a straighter entry and not arc as much and slow down before the corner and take a straight entry, the straight entry essentially just forces you to slow down more than you think you should, or more than you would if you would be arcing in the corner. That'll save your tires. And again, with iRacing the way it is now, saving your tires will equal results for you, whether it's winning a race or getting your first top five or whatever, finishing top five, whatever. Saving tires will benefit you more than anything else that you can possibly do. Yeah, I was a good racetrack, good and wide, but like I said, the fast lane is going to be avoiding that bump into one, being on the top side of that, coming down, hitting the white line, maintaining that low all the way off, backstretch, try to be as deliberate and low as possible, shallow entry, hit the bottom, smooth on the throttle, don't spin the tires. Because another thing at Iowa and in Richmond too, Richmond and Iowa are very similar. Another racetrack that I really like, uh, very notorious for spinning your tires off of four, excuse me, and that will just completely murder your run. Like if you do that once, you're going to be chasing that tire wear for the rest of your run, and that's just a characteristic of how the tires are right now. Whether that's realistic or not, I don't know. Never driven a race car before, but that's just kind of is what it is. If you can avoid spinning your tires and I always use the analogy with people like people have heard it before. It's like an old racing idiom, but drive like you have an eggshell or an egg under your gas pedal.
Under the gas pedal. Yeah.
Yep, and just roll into it nice and smooth. Same thing with the brake, nice and smooth. Smoothness pays off in iRacing more times than not.
Yeah, and that will be a day race too. So,
oh, perfect.
Hot sun.
You get yeah.
It's shining on the pavement out there.
That'll be even more of a thing to be like, make sure that you hit your line. Make sure you don't cook your tires because they will burn off faster at night or during the day than they will at night. Just very deliberate and very smooth with your inputs, and you'd be good to go.
Yeah, and that will start a stretch of 4 really interesting different racetracks for the CDRA Motorsports Drop Super Truck Series. We will start off at Iowa on September 14th. The following weekend, we head to the Roval, Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, for the first road course event of 3 on the calendar. So we'll be looking forward to that. That will be on September 21st. The following week, September 28th, we head to Kentucky for the Bluegrass 175. That will be the second 1.5 mile on the schedule. It was originally only supposed to have 2.5 miles on the schedule until Las Vegas was added as the season finale. And then October 5th, we head up to Canada. We head to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park for the inaugural Canadian 200 from most sports. So very difficult stretch of races here. Going to be getting off the ovals and heading to the road courses, and that is really going to be interesting to see how that kind of separates the bottleneck at the top of the point standings right now. So we'll have to see how that goes, as Elliott Henderson has an 8-point lead over Davis Warren. David Amboy, am third in points, tied with Curtis Granger. Matt Everhart is 5th. Brent Sweet is 6th, 41 points back. 42 points back is Drew Glover. I'm going to make this a graphic for next time. Mike Oppenheimer is 8th in points, 43 back. And then a tie for the 9th spot in between Timothy Glenn, who, I tell you, Timothy Glenn, as an aside, he's been great. He had a cup of coffee in the Court Cup Series, and it didn't quite work out. But in this CDRA Truck Series, he's been really good in the 3 events that he's competed in. And Nick Hansen.
Yeah, it's really refreshing seeing guys like, obviously we know that the usual Court Cup guys that are racing that have their 4 starts or whatever are going to be pretty good. But it's really good seeing the amount of people that are running up front in these races that normally aren't necessarily your usual suspects, if you will, especially seeing that in the points. That's really cool.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Jordan, thank you so much for coming out and being our inaugural guest here on CDRA Twitch Teach. I think what we've seen in the chat has been really well received. So I think this might become a weekly feature here on our new Twitch page. So thank you very much for coming out and sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And like I said, if it's me doing it next week or whoever, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be me. There's a lot of guys that are definitely qualified to do this. I wouldn't necessarily say that Brett Black is one of them. You probably want to not do him, but
yeah, I don't know about Brett. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that one right there.
But like I said, hopefully it catches on, and hopefully guys find a little bit of some value in it all, and maybe I'll do a better job next time of of taking some notes and making sure that it's not just because honestly, I think what I messaged you the other day, and I'm like,
Tuesday.
hey, I have
Yeah.
this idea. We should try to do this, and I wish I would have taken notes from
Yeah.
what like some of the things that I saw, but honestly, I just
And
it's a
we're
real quick idea that
yeah,
I hopefully will help.
and we're also starting this on the worst possible time because we're doing this going into an off week. So we can't really review anything next week.
Yeah, but everybody can practice Iowa now.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Get 100 laps in at Iowa, which will go by real quick, and we should have a great race there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so for Jordan Erickson, I am David Damboys, and we would like to thank you for watching Cedar Twitch Teach, and we'll catch you on the flip side. So long, everybody.